am joined by Sly or Shanique, whatever you want to call her. I know her as Shanique, but now she is Sly. Sly, how are you doing this evening?
I am doing well. I'm happy to be here.
Gotcha. That's great to hear. Happy to have you on. And like I said, we talked before going on. You were one of the first few people that I wanted to go for on my hit list when it came to putting this together. Just because we go so far back, like over like 10 years, so going back to the VSU UBP days, and then also went to VCU together. You were a year ahead of me, but like we went through the same program, and it's good to see that you're having success within your field nowadays. So thank you for like I said, taking the time to be here.
Yes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you said 10 years. Yeah, it's been 10 years. So that's so crazy.
We weren't able to drink by then. Now you got a whole thing of wine in your fridge, and I got a whole bunch of alcohol in my apartment. We're not alcoholics, but that's how far we've come up in this world.
Yes, we started out as babies.
Yeah, so definitely, what are you doing nowadays? Just like what's keeping you going? To see these Instagram photos, your life is taking you some of everywhere over the past couple of years.
Yeah, so what am I doing now? I feel like I'm doing everything, but still, like I have so much more that I want to do. But right now, I am managing digital and social media for AspireTV. It is a lifestyle brand that was founded by Magic Johnson in 2012. And I also freelance as a journalist for various outlets, including Blavity's Afrotech, Shadow and Act. I've also written a few stories for their 2190 brand and also Revolt TV. Anyone that allows me to share our stories, I'm all for it. That's so to sum it all up, I'm just out here sharing our stories.
Out here grinding and hustling, like we said. Like, how many hours out of the day, since you're like attached to so many different names and brands, you have your main job, but then you got your hustles outside of that. How many hours out of the day do you just spend hustling, working?
Whoo, oh my gosh, I've never thought about that. And I feel like I'm gonna sound like a workaholic. But shoot, okay, so I do try to end my day like work wise no later than 6:30. 6:30 is like an emergency day, but like 6:30 is my max. I'm like, I'm not doing anything else.
So when does that day start?
I try to get up by 8 o'clock. I try to get up and I try to meditate. It doesn't always work every day, but I try to ground myself before I get started, say a little prayer, that I am being used to my full capacity. But yeah, I would say I start roughly between 7 and 8 and I finish at about 6:30.
Yeah, it just sounds like the true work day for any normal human being in a sense. I know with when it comes to being working in the media and stuff, you're told when to work, and you kind of just you fly by the seat of your pants doing whatever it is in a day. So I get the sense that's kind of what it's like with you from a day-to-day basis. But I'm pretty sure that started at least a little bit earlier for you, like growing up, like down in Dinwiddie, VA. How was that like? How was the childhood for young Shanique before Sly?
Oh, so my childhood, I was very that's so funny, but I started out really shy. So I was very shy. I actually stuttered really bad when I was a kid. And so shout out to my dad, helped me overcome my stuttering, and then story has that I never shut up after. And so I fell in love with like reading and writing at a very young age. Like I still, when I visit home, I actually have breakfast most times with my second grade teacher, Mrs. Simmons. And so she'll cook me breakfast and I'll just go spend time with her. But it was really Mrs. Simmons who was like, this child can write. Like, you know what I mean? And so I always was journaling, always writing, and I pretty much like daydreamed through my reading. So that was me. I always had my head in a book. That was like my big thing. My Nana was nervous because she was like, oh my gosh, she's gonna start school and she's not gonna know how to interact with real people because she keeps her head in a book. But thankfully I got out of that shell, and in third grade I actually started doing oratorical contests because I had this obsession as a kid with um Martin Luther King Jr. So as a kid, I was infatuated with him, the way he spoke to people. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do something like that. So I started doing oratorical contests. I didn't always place. I don't think I placed until like maybe late middle school. But like my childhood was very inquisitive. It was very humble beginnings too. I come from a family of farmers. My mom is a teacher. My dad is a diesel mechanic. So very humble beginnings, but it was always, I always knew that I wanted to like write at a young age. And then I feel like storytelling evolved into something else as I got older.
And I feel you on that stuttering problem. I still have it every now and again. I mean, grew up with it. My mom was able to get me out of the habit, but when I get really excited and get talking about something, that's where it comes out. Sometimes your mouth moves faster than your mind, so you really haven't formulated the words. So I definitely hear you on that. Storytelling. Know when you went to school. You wanted to go into journalism. When exactly did you know you wanted to go in that? And then with journalism, there's so many different fields and everything. Where exactly did you want to go with that?
Yeah, so I figured out that I wanted to go into journalism in high school. I used to be in Coach Walters is his name, Jeff Walters. Shout out to Coach Walters, one of my favorite history teachers. But we both love the Dallas Cowboys. So
Oh,
listen, we need to get this on video. We're going to Super Bowl this year. Like
you'll have your moment to gloat later. Get back to your story.
but so yeah, so we both were, my teacher and I were Cowboys fans. So I would come in class in the morning and I would give a rundown on the game, and he was like, hey, have you ever thought about being a sports reporter? And I was like, no. I mean, I always liked football, basketball, some baseball, some NASCAR, but I was just like, I don't know. But then I was like, you know what, that sounds like a great idea because I can write, I can do it all. And so I started like looking at like Robin Roberts in her journey as a sports reporter. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do that when I grow up. I'm gonna be a sports reporter. And that's what intentionally went to VCU for. I went with a focus. I was like, I'm gonna study broadcast journalism because I'm gonna be a reporter on ESPN. And so life had a funny way of like changing that course. But I find myself now and today, I get to do sports stories still. Like, so I've gotten to interview like Jalen Smith of the Cowboys this year.
Former Cowboy now.
Wait.
Oh, you just finding out about this.
What
He got
happened?
cut.
When
He
did
got
he
cut
get cut?
yesterday.
Damn. Okay. Damn.
You, you, you. I'm sorry if I had to be the one to break the
Oh
news.
my gosh. I did not know that. Wow. Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry I
Well,
had to be the one to break it to you. I'm not the
dang,
Cowboy fan here.
dang, Jalen. Well, got to interview NFL player.
He'll be somewhere. He'll make it back
Yeah,
somewhere.
he'll definitely be somewhere. And so I got to interview him for like another story, like, right, about his brand and his business. And so it's just little moments like that. And then interviewing somebody like Donovan Smith, like, like just so like when I did those, I kind of like sat down and like little Shanique was excited because I was like, oh man, it's still like when you follow your passions, it has a way of coming back.
You and I both had a very similar plan in life in the sense wanting to go. We went to VCU and then also wanting to be in sports. Who else other than Robin Roberts? Who else were some inspirations for you to growing up when you thought that you might be going in that world?
Oh, that's a good question. So, definitely Pam. Um, and what is Carrie Champion.
Ooh,
She
Miss
was the
Carrie, baby.
Yeah, like Carrie Champion was like that girl for me. Like Robin Roberts, I was just like, her story is amazing. But when I saw Carrie, I was like, you know what? I can do that when I grow up. You know, I also like Jamel Hill and of course Stuart Scott, rest in peace. You know, just seeing those Black journalists in those spaces made me feel like, hey, this can happen and I can do this. Free and AJ on 106 in Park. Like growing up and watching them, I was like, I wanted that. I was like, that's so cool. I want to do that. And even Terrence J and Roxy, you know, um, those were people for me. And then even people like across, like now, like I love Gia Peppers. She's an amazing journalist. But seeing those people, and those are some of the people that I followed, that I was like, hey, this is attainable. This can happen. And of course, Oprah, because I grew up watching the Oprah show with my Nana. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to sit on the couch and talk to people all day.
I want to get into representation a little bit later when it comes to African Americans in the media. But it's funny you said earlier, life kind of has its twists and turns throughout life. After you graduate from VCU, by the way, shout out to Tim B and Colleen. We definitely got to shout them out if we're talking VCU on here. But after you graduate from school, where did life take you? And then how did you get to where you are now?
Whew. Okay, so life took me on a ride after college because I think people don't talk about it enough about post-graduation depression. So I graduated, I had nothing lined up. I felt like, oh my gosh, what is this? What is this real world? I'm not doing I don't feel fulfilled. Um, so life really took me on a journey, but I feel like it also like molded me and prepared me for what it is now. So after college, I ended up working at a call center for Bon Secours. And as I worked at Bon Secours, I landed a part-time job with NBC 12 as
Shout out Craig.
yes, as a production assistant for NBC 12. And so that experience was amazing. Like being in the news setting, I was excited, I was hungry. And mind you, at that point in my life, I graduated in 2015. So by that point in my life, I had moved out, or I was preparing to move out on my own, and bills were real. So I worked my full-time job. So I'm gonna put it into perspective. I worked my full-time job from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. at Bon Secours. And then I would wake up and be at NBC at from 3:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. 8 a.m. So my shift would be early morning, like the very top of the morning news. And then I would go and work my full-time job, and then I would do it all over again. And I worked every single day of the week. And that, while it was fun, it wasn't fun. I'm not going to glorify it because it was hard. It was hard on my body, on my spirit. And just one day I just couldn't get out of bed, and it just was bad. So I had to let one thing go, and I decided to let NBC 12 go. And people thought I was crazy. But I was like, I have an apartment now. I need a full-time. This is a full-time job with benefits. I have to do this. And so with that, it was back to square one. I had this experience working in production, and that's when I realized, shout out to all the production assistants and the people in production, but I was like, this is not for me. This is not my ministry. And, I just kept being told, you have to work your way up, work your way up, work your way up. And I was like, you know what? I understand that. And I'm not saying I need to come in and just be on top. But I was just like, I just felt very stagnant, and I felt there wasn't much room for growth there. So I ended up leaving there, worked at Bon Secours. I put in job applications every day. So like my job at Bon Secours was calling people to collect their bills for their appointments. And so while I was doing that, I was listening to podcasts like the Black Girl podcast with Gia Pepper, Scotty Beam, all of them. And that was like motivation for me. So I was listening to that, working at work, putting in applications, and I was also writing for a brand called M Lifestyle. So I was trying to like fight to keep my passions alive. You know what I mean? It was just like, I need to pay bills, but like I don't feel like myself if I'm not doing something that I love. So long story short, from there, I got a job at T-Mobile as a social media coordinator. And that was cool, but I still wanted more. Like that job was great. It was fully remote, great benefits, great pay. But I was just like, I need more. And again, I started looking into corporate communications and I was like, again, God has a way of not giving you what you want so that you can get what he has for you. And so because of that, I ended up hitting up one of my mentors who's also from Dinwiddie. Her name is Keisha Taylor. And Keisha worked at CNN for years, CNN Turner. She worked there for years and was in Atlanta. I said, hey, Keisha, I want to move to Atlanta. Like, if you know of anything, let me know. Like, you know what I mean? In the past, she had gave me a plug for Turner. Things didn't work out. But this time, she randomly called me one day, was like, hey, this brand AspireTV is hiring, like they're looking for work, da 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 da. So she connected me with someone at AspireTV, Whitney Anderson. And from there, I was already in this zone. I was like, this is fast forward. Like, so this is all, and I hope I'm not saying like rambling. You could cut.
No, you're fine. You're completely fine.
Yeah.
I just need to turn down the AC.
Yeah. And so from 2000, so that's like 2015 through 2018. So in January of 2019, I told myself, I'm moving to Atlanta. I'm moving to Atlanta. Like, I'm going to figure it out. And so long story short, Whitney, I ended up speaking to her. I visited Atlanta twice before I moved. So I visited in April to visit my cousin. And then I came back in May with some friends. And when I came in May, I set up a meeting with the GM, Melissa Ingram of AspireTV, learned more about the brand. And, you know, we were just like, okay, from here, just call me if anything becomes available, da, 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 da. So in May, went back home, did my favorite thing to do, wrote and mailed them a letter thanking them for their time. And that's May. My lease ended in July. And my mom was like, okay, well, what are you gonna do? Like, if by the time your lease ends, you're not in Atlanta. I was just like, I'll just move home for a little bit, kick it there, and then I'll figure it out. I'm just not gonna start another lease in Richmond and have that be my excuse for not leaving. So I finally got the call about a week and a half before my lease ended. And they were like, hey, can you come down? And da, 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 da. And I was like, yeah, I can. And so I literally had like a 2-week turnaround, less than that, to get to Atlanta. I packed up my little Nissan and I hit the road. I hit the ground running. As I mentioned, my cousin Joy, shout out to Joy. I ended up rooming with her here for the first 19. Yeah, we lived together for about a year and a half. And from there, it's really been smooth sailing. And I want to add that I left T-Mobile with benefits, with stability, with everything. I told my best friend, Courtney, you remember Courtney from Upward Bound?
Yep,
I told her
about,
yes. So I told her about Aspire, but I didn't tell my parents because I didn't want anybody to talk me out of it. Because I was taking a pay cut. I was going to be a contractor, no benefits, no guarantee that this was going to stay in motion. But I was like, I have faith and I believe in God and he's going to carry me through. So I came down and it's the best decision I made for my life because started in August as a contractor. By December, I went full time. And from there, it's opened the door to so many opportunities and so many things just keep coming back full circle to remind me that this was the decision I was supposed to make.
What is that timeline of everything that happened?
I graduated in 2015, worked at NBC starting in early 2016, left NBC at the top of 2017, started T-Mobile in 2018 and stayed there through August 2019. And that's when I started at AspireTV.
So you and I think had maybe like a 3 month crossover at NBC 12 because I
Yeah.
started there October 2016, I believe.
Oh, so you know what? I think that you said October 2016. Yeah. Because I was there, but I worked that early morning shift. And I
Yeah,
think I remember. Yeah, I remember. I feel like we crossed paths at some point.
rarely.
Yeah, it was very rare because in that local news world, it's like two different worlds, like morning, and then evening.
Yeah, and Craig had me come in. I was primary evening editor. He had me work mornings of every here and there, just get experience there in case I ever had to fill in or anything. But going back to just the local news, because it can be a grind to try to get to where you want to be in a sense, getting that first job in a sense. I
Yeah,
mean, for you getting your opportunity with Aspire, that was 4 years. For some people, they try and they never even give it a shot, and then they fully transition careers. So for those that are looking to go into the media world, into news after they graduate, do you have any words for them? Because it can be exhaustive, especially if you come from a background, especially like if you don't have the ends to meet, because you don't make anything in that first job.
you don't. You make pennies. And that's why, like, I know it sounds so cliche, but love it. Like, have the passion. I literally just told one of my girlfriends that if I didn't love this, I wouldn't survive this, because even now I'm like busting my ass. Like, you know what I mean? And I know that it wouldn't be as fun if I didn't love it, because it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like second nature. You know what I mean? And so my advice is to be passionate about it, but also be persistent and don't give up. Like, people are going to tell you what they think your career path or your life should look like, but only you can determine that. You know what I mean? Only you know what's best for you. As I mentioned, I didn't even tell my parents. I didn't tell anyone except for one person when I took the job at Aspire, because I didn't want any negative energy, and not that they were going to intentionally be negative, but I didn't want anyone trying to talk me out of it. You know what I'm saying? And so know what's good for you and know when to walk away. Like I said, I enjoyed NBC, but I knew when to walk away. Like, I knew when I felt I wasn't being valued. I know when I felt like, hey, this isn't for me, and that's okay. Like, and to other people that looked crazy, because on the outside looking in, they're like, "Oh, you're at NBC. That's great. Like, you're doing great." Like, you know what I mean? But when you're in it, only you know what's right for you, and that passion and that persistent can take you wherever you want to go. And I feel like even now people have more of an advantage too with social media. Like, you can create things now while you wait. Like, whether it's your YouTube channel if you want to talk about sports in a certain medium, start the channel. Somebody's going to watch it. There's so many different ways to market yourself now with social media that wasn't the same. It was just like kind of getting started when I graduated, but there's so many avenues, and media doesn't look the same for everyone. So, like, you have PR, you have advertising, you have journalism, like, you have so many different things that you can do. It's endless. Like, the opportunities are endless. I think to sum it all up is create your own lane.
Both of us worked at 12. Those $10 an hour paychecks don't go very far.
Listen, that's why I told you I had a full-time job, because I was like, I have to pay bills. Okay. I have bills to pay.
Loans to pay back and all that stuff,
Exactly.
rent, and
Exactly.
just have, or even just have a life outside of that cost.
Exactly. I'm just like, I have a lifestyle I want to live. So yeah, I had to work. And even now I have to hustle for the lifestyle I want to live, like paying bills, and I want to travel, and I want to do all of this and do that. And I'm not going to sit up here and lie to you and say, oh, media is just, you're going to be rolling in the dough, because that is not the case. That's why I say you have to love it.
And I can speak from experience, making $12, $13 an hour in your first market. You gotta be prepared mentally for that and know how to manage your money when it comes to that. So moving
Yeah.
away from that, the doors that were open for you at Aspire, talk about some of those.
Yeah, so it's so funny because I feel like if you talk to people at NBC versus people at Aspire about my work ethic, they might have said two different things, you know? But
Hmm.
I feel like that because like I worked hard at NBC, but I also felt a little again stagnant, and I felt like there was like a wall. So sometimes I would work and I would stay after with the sports guys to try to learn from them. But when I came to Aspire TV, I like hit the ground running. Like within my first month, I was like, hey, I came as a social media coordinator, right? And I was using my handy dandy email, that Aspire.tv email for media events here in Atlanta, trying to cover things. Like I was using my iPhone. One of the first things I covered when I got here was Black Music Honors. So that was like, that wasn't them telling me. They didn't say, hey, Shanique, go cover this. I was the social media coordinator. I manage social media. So, but that was me. I was like, I want to be a journalist. I want to do entertainment. This is happening. I'm going to make it happen. You know what I mean? And so a lot of it was, again, me making it happen because the worst somebody could tell you is no. So even now, I shoot my shot as high as I want each time. You know what I mean? Especially even with the BET Hip Hop Awards. When I first got here, I think I like submitted to work that and it was denied. And then I got to do it when it was virtual. So that was fun. But then I did it again and it worked this time. Like, you know what I mean? So a lot of it was like grinding and putting myself out there, not just like for Aspire, yes, but I also wanted to put myself out there as Shanique, you know, as a journalist and doing the work in that sense and build a network. So a lot of it has been hitting the ground running, shooting my shot high, and then also going to events and networking. Like Issa Rae said it best, like you should network across. Like everybody always wants to network up and get like Oprah or somebody or Issa Rae as their mentor, where you should really connect with the people who are in the grind with you, because those are going to be the people that once they take off, they're going to be like, oh, I remember Shanique, or I remember Darnell, and I remember that they said that they wanted to do that. So that's when they'll hit you up and say, hey, I'm working on this. Do you want to do it? And so that's a lot of where my freelance gigs have come from, like on Twitter. Like for Afrotech, it was literally on Twitter. Someone tagged me in something and was like, oh, you know, someone, Blavity editor was asking for a writer. And someone tagged me, and from there I slid in her DMs. And that was just starting out transcribing, writing short articles for podcasts. And now I'm a staff writer. You know what I mean? So it's just like taking those chances and running with it. And like I said, networking across, because and being kind to people, being intentional and being genuine. Like people know and they can smell a mile away when you're not being genuine. But when you're being genuine, like the doors open up for you. But that's not to say you don't have to do the work to get there. But I just say like definitely hitting the ground running is how everything is continuing to happen.
March 2020, when that came around, pandemic, shutdown,
Oh my
world.
gosh.
How did your life change or your work change when that happened?
Wow. Okay. So I'm not going to lie. When the pandemic first came, I was so sad. Like when and I'm sure everybody was sad, but I was really sad because I felt like, wow, I had a taste of this. And then it just got all snatched away because the media events stopped. All of that stuff stopped. And before the pandemic hit, I actually, my last event before that was the CIAA. So I had traveled to Charlotte, and I covered I worked the CIAA for Aspire, because at Aspire TV, most people don't know, we have a lot of HBCU content. Like all of the content you guys are asking for HBCUs, it's on Aspire. Like, so the games, football,
ESPN now?
basketball.
Are you throwing shots at ESPN?
I'm just saying, saying, it's been on Aspire. It's been there before the pandemic, all of that. And so I worked that, came back, pandemic hit, and I was sad because, again, I was sad in a selfish way. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just getting started. It was all about me. I'm just like, ugh, this is so horrible, da 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 da. But I had to like really recenter myself, refocus, and just come back. So what that looked like for me is we went fully remote. That was doing my job from home. I'm still working remotely, but in that working remotely, I'm not going to lie to you, it has helped tremendously because I was able to pick up those side gigs. I've been able to do more work, put my name out there more. I think that the pandemic brought back this sense of authenticity and kind of like the, what is it called? The, oh gosh, it's escaping me, when you're not the underdog. Like, it's, it's been the case of the underdog, so even then with virtual press junkets, hopping on Zoom like this and talking to stars, interviewing people like in this capacity, that has been great, and it's allowed me to get my name out there. But yeah, it was a full transformation. And I think I had to shift my mindset because, like I said, at first I was like, oh my gosh, I just got started and now the world wants to end, so that's what it looked like. And that's what it's still looking like. The pandemic is still very real, but I think now we're just learning that this isn't going away. So yeah.
Things are better compared to where it was like last year, May, April, and everything, but we're still in the pandemic. But your storytelling over the time, and I think that's the one thing that has been very key to everything just going on, because we still have to like tell the stories of things that are happening. What has that been like for you throughout the pandemic, and even now? Just, I mean, that's what you do, you storytell.
Yeah, and that's tough, honestly, to be very transparent, because when you're a journalist or you work in media, you have to be in the know. Like, I'm working social media at Aspire. I'm also writing for them. So I'm staying on top of the news and things like that. And last year, that was really dark. It's still dark now, but it was very dark with all of the deaths and all of the police brutality. It just seemed like it just was, I don't know, it just was really bad. And so that had a huge effect on my mental health. And I had to just, again, take a step back. And I chose for myself, like, I want to share those stories that need to be told, but I also take time for myself. So, like, this past weekend, I didn't do anything on Saturday and Sunday. Like, I didn't send an email. I didn't check an email. Oh, let me send this real quick. I took like a time back. And even with social media, sometimes, especially during the pandemic, I had a time where at 9 o'clock, I'm done. No more social media for the rest of the night, because it was just very dark. And I just had to really figure out how to balance that. And so I think my storytelling in terms of the pandemic was just learning all about balance. Yes, I have to tell stories about all of the missing Black and brown people in America, but also I need to tell stories about the 13-year-old little Black boy who is studying aerospace engineering at Georgia Tech. You know what I mean? It's just finding that balance. And I'm not going to tell you, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I do approach my stories with a lot of integrity. If I don't think, how is a good way to put it? If it's something, if I don't believe in it, and I know that's like one-sided journalism, so that I'm not saying that that's right for you hard newsers out there, but but I just had to be like, you know what, this isn't serving me. I'm not gonna write about this today. Like, you know what I mean? Knowing what works for me or what doesn't work for me. So again, that balance has been super effective in my form of storytelling.
And then taking care of your mental. I feel like working in the media, working in news is become, you don't often get to focus on it, think about it, especially because you're constantly trying, or you just are, you're constantly plugged into whatever is going on in the world, whether it's a fire or something happening down the street, or just just the big news coming out of LA or just what's going on in the world. How important is it to take care of that? Because I see now more journalists are taking into account. Just last week, I saw there was a TV station in Portland, Oregon. They shut down for the day. No news because they wanted to focus on the mental.
Yeah, so that's I'm telling you, that's my number one thing. Nothing like no work, no family, no friends, no anything is gonna come before Shanique. And it took a very long time to get there. But you said one key thing, and it's that unplugging, right? So I know when to unplug. Like I start since 2019. I like to start the top of the year with a fast. So I'm not on like starting January 1st, like through the 21st, I wasn't on social media like at all, besides posting for work. That was it. Like I posted things, and a lot of times people think like, and you do what works best for you. But my biggest thing was like, you know what? The opportunities that are supposed to come, which I mentioned before, I find a lot of them on social media. I was like, they'll find their way to me. I need to take this time to myself. So, in particular, this year, it was interesting because I was off social media from January 1st to January 21st. That was just me unplugging and getting started with a fresh start for the new year, right? Of course, I still knew the funny videos, like, you know what I mean? I still was able to like grab like big news and share that, but I wasn't embedded in it from a personal standpoint. It was so strictly for work. And so, because of that, when the things happened at the Capitol, I wasn't plugged in. I didn't even know because a part of my fast is no TV too. So I was like one of those people in the mountains or something. And I had no connection, but my goddaughter was here spending time with me. And she is, at the time, she was 8 years old. And she was like, God, mommy, they're doing bad things. Like, because she's on TikTok and she's showing me. But like, honestly, during that time, it was so much people outraged, frustrated, and all of these things. But I had peace. You know what I mean? That sounds very crazy with it. It was a tumultuous time, but I had peace because I had unplugged. And so because of that, I encourage all people to unplug from things like that are consuming all of your time. That's the number one key for your mental health or your sanity. Like I said, starting the day with meditation, that's important to me, or starting the day with a prayer. Like I think I tweeted yesterday, I'm one thing's about it, one thing for certain, two things for sure. I'm gonna start my day with a cup of tea, and I'm gonna end my day with a cup of hot tea. Because it just gets me ready, and then it winds me down for the day. I think I mentioned having that hard stop at 6:30, 7 o'clock. That's for my mental health. You know what I mean? Like right now, I'm binging My Wife and Kids. That's something that makes me happy. You know what I mean? But like also journaling. Like I just did an Instagram live with the founder of Be Rooted, a Black stationery company. And I still have it right here. Super dope. But journaling, like that helps me a lot. And I've always journaled, but like really journaling, really processing my thoughts, and just knowing like what's good for Shanique and what doesn't work for Shanique, walking away from things like that. And like I said, it took me 28 years to get here, but it's great. And I'm still learning, but you have to put yourself first. That's a huge key in working in media, where things are always happening. Something's always going to be happening, but you just have to like figure out, hey, you know what? I'm going to silence the chaos for an hour to read a book, you know?
Yep. And then also just one you mentioned having your day come full circle, like start your day with a cup of tea and with a cup of tea. It seems like you kind of had one of those tea moments this past weekend. You got to cover the BET Awards, and I saw the image that you put out there. You were able to go there when 2012. What was that like for that to come full circle?
Oh my gosh. I just was telling Ebony, another Upward Bound, that's my girl. I was just telling Ebony, like, I don't think anything is ever like people are always like, oh my gosh, this is your life. I don't think I'm ever going to get used to anything, you know? I am from Dinwiddie County. I am a country girl. Like, you know what I mean? This is unheard of. Like it really is. But what I'll say is, when I went to the BET Awards in 2012, that was my first time on an airplane, right? My first time on the West Coast, my first time seeing all of these things in real life, like seeing like Tyrese and Tank, because at the time TGT, like Tyrese, Genuine, Tank was still going, and seeing them saying, "Hey, y'all come get a plate." I'm like, okay. Like, you know what I mean? Because my friend's father worked for BET at the time. So he took us to the award show. But that was the first time that I saw it and I could touch it. And I was like, you know what? This is attainable. And mind you, I was only going into my sophomore year at VCU at the time. So imagine that, from 2012 all the way to 2021. What's that? I'm not good at math, you guys. I'm a writer.
Like 9 years.
Yeah. So 9 years later, being able to do that's as full circle as it gets. I was like, oh my gosh, this is really happening. Like, I'm really here. Like, and for me, it's just a reminder to me that it's all worth it. Like the long days, the hustling, all of that is worth it, and that I am doing what I am supposed to do. I have so many full circle moments. Like that one is a huge one, but even small ones are just like, whoa, this is happening.
And then also, like, you want to follow up off of that. Just you talked about earlier about Roxy and Terrence J, AJ and Free, the old 106 days. Those were people of color who were in the media at the time, and now you're one of those people that are living that moment, that is in that moment as a person of color. Black representation in media, it's getting better in a sense. So as society has progressed, but we still have a long way to go. But how is it important for yourself, since you're now in that space, being someone on TV, being someone on social media, to be, how important is it to, kind of light that torch for maybe someone else who wants to be in that space, let's say 5-10 years from now?
Yeah, that's my favorite part about what I do. Like, as I've gotten older, I I view success differently. And now success for me is reaching out and giving opportunities to more people who look like me. And what that looks like, it warms my heart when people are like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so inspired by you." Because I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, like I feel like I haven't done that much. Like, you're inspired by me. Like, what is this?" But I am still very, very much me. I spend time talking to people. If I hear about an opportunity, I'm giving that next person a chance as much as I can, because that is key to me, because people did that for me. I mentioned Keisha Taylor, my mentor from Dinwiddie, Allison Tucker, my mentor from Dinwiddie, both women, Black women who worked in media. Allison actually worked for the NFL Players Association for years. So I grew up seeing that. Like, that's my childhood best friend's aunt. So I grew up seeing that in real time. Again, I could touch it, but it was just me being like, "Hey, Allison, I have a question." So, and even with Keisha, like Keisha's a family friend, but like it was me bugging them. It wasn't them like, "Oh, I'm gonna mentor you." It was me being like, "Oh, I want to know more about this. I want to do this." And they took the time to truly see me. Right. So I make it a point to do the same for other people. Like if someone slides in my DMs and they're like, "Oh, I have questions," I make the time to do that because other people did it for me. You know what I mean? And I just think that that's important. It's one thing to see it, but it's one thing, like it costs me nothing to take 15 minutes out of my day to encourage someone or to give advice. And I think that's a huge part of the representation too, because I'm a regular person. I'm using my gift, and I feel like I'm walking in purpose. And if I can, I pray that all the time before interviews, before I have to do those big moments. I ask God to allow his light to shine through me, that it will touch other people. And so that is the biggest thing that is important to me as a journalist or as a Black woman being in this space, is to let other little Black and brown girls know that they can do it too. And even Black boys too, like everybody, like I want them to know like this is attainable, you can do this. And especially back home, like I love going home. I've done it twice. I haven't done it since the pandemic, but I've gone to career day at my high school, and that was like my favorite thing ever, because I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I'm so excited to share what I know, and just encourage other people. That means a lot to me.
How important is it for, we talked about you being in space, but for bosses, CEOs to have more people of color in those spaces, so that way you're not just looking at the same, I mean, I'm just gonna call a spade here, the
Yeah.
same white, no color people on TV day in and day out for 24 hours a day. How important is that, so that the world can have much more, have better vantage points of how things are, and so that the youth also can be able to, grow up and have those same dreams that you and I had.
Yeah, so that's equally as important. It's one thing to have representation, but to like really have representation. And I'm not just saying throwing a Black woman up on Black History Month or things like that, or Juneteenth now, right? Like it is like the top people, whether it's in media, whether it's in film, whether it is in business, like you need to see it to believe it, right? And so we need more people, like we need people from all walks, like, right? So you need your dark skinned women, you need your light skinned women, like you need all varieties, you need people who identify differently, like you need representation across the board, and it needs to start in that boardroom, because that's where it'll really make a difference. Because when you're just tossing someone up there as like a scapegoat, that's when you get those people who say things or um they act in a way that you're like, ugh, are they really, are they really, are they, because what is it, all skin folk ain't kin folk, all kin
Yep.
folk ain't skin folk, or
Hmm.
whatever. Like that's very true too. Be intentional with the people that you're putting in a space, and make sure that they know the culture and they can speak to the culture. It infuriates me a lot of times, like especially as a entertainment or someone who loves to cover music, where it's just like, I think I went to like an event, and it's no shade to the journalist there, but it was like a little white girl, and she was interviewing Coach K of QC, of the QC label, one of the founders of the QC label. And he was like walking in real time, making and into forming Jeezy into the artist that he is today. And he was so excited about it. And because you could tell she didn't really know the culture, she didn't know how to hone in on that excitement and ask the questions that we really needed to hear. It's important. And that's where I see it a lot, especially with music, especially in hip hop. I see that the door is like open for a lot of white journalists, and you can love it all you want, but it's our culture, it's us, we know it, like, you know what I mean, it needs to be reflective, and it needs to be told through people who look like us.
All right, well, winding down here, I'm going to ask you just a few quick questions and then we'll be out of here. First question, the first ever pinch yourself moment that you had.
Oh, okay. So it was working. I covered the Revolt Summit in September 2019. So a little under a month from me moving to Atlanta. And everybody who knows me knows I love Diddy. Um, I think I was in Bad Boys at some point in another lifetime. And so that was a pinch myself moment, because he was there. I like, it was networking. I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane.
Favorite story that you have done?
That's really hard. Wow. Favorite story that I have ever done. You know what? I'm gonna do a shameless plug. I shot a documentary on my family earlier this year. My great grandfather was a pioneer in the Black farmers movement. And so I told his journey as a sharecropper to a pioneer for Black farmers that we're still fighting for today through the eyes of his children. And that to date is the best story I've ever told.
Favorite entertainers growing up?
Of course, Diddy, for sure. Destiny's Child, Beyonce. Um, I was a pop girl too, so I would lie. I would be lying if I didn't say I was a Britney girl. I love Britney, Britney Spears.
Britney, bitch.
Yes, it's Britney, bitch. I loved her so much.
Are you part of the Free Britney movement?
I am. Free her.
Free
Okay.
Britney.
Yes, free Britney. But New Edition, Ja Rule, Usher, so many. I'm like such a 90s girl, but I have an old soul too. So I love the Temptations, like still to this day.
Hey, my mom still blasts them every time I go home, especially my mom loved the Temptation, especially around Christmas time. What about favorite actors and actresses?
Ooh, okay. So favorite actresses and definitely Nia Long, Gabrielle
Ooh,
Union.
she don't
Um,
age.
No, none of them. Sanaa Lathan. Like, okay, so Sanaa Lathan, her role in Brown Sugar made me be like, Sydney, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be that. Like, I'm gonna be a music journalist. Like, I'm gonna be doing that. Like, her role was the very first time I was like, whoa, this is so dope. And oh, Morris Chestnut, Tay Diggs. Oh, I'm a Denzel girl. I love all of Denzel's movies. He does no wrong. Will Smith. And like I mentioned, like my wife and kids, like I love the Wayans, like all of them. It's so many, it's too many to name, but those are a few.
That's why I didn't want to like say top five or anything because it's so hard to limit that question. Top five musicians, artists, it's so hard. You don't want to leave anyone out. Favorite celebrity that you have had the chance to interview and someone that you haven't interviewed that you want to interview?
Ooh, okay. So far, oh my gosh, it's so hard. I'm gonna do a male and a woman. So far, one of my top interviews was I interviewed Mary J. Blige. That was like, what the hell is happening? And she was so down to earth on the Zoom. I enjoyed that. And male would be Master P. Because it's a Master P.
Mm-hmm.
And like Master P is what everybody thinks Jay-Z is. But I love Jay-Z. But like as far as ownership and like us and Black people, and again, carving your own lane, Master P does it for me. So those are top two. People I haven't interviewed yet that I would like to interview. I want to go ahead and manifest this. I want to interview Usher.
Ooh,
I
okay.
really want to interview Usher. Because I love him and I just want to talk to him. And then my other one that I would say, I really want to interview Jonte Austin. So I met him during an R&B night. And oh, those are two men. But I met him at an R&B night and I actually grabbed a photo with him. But I would like to talk to him just about, creating and writing that music that we all love and still writing today. I want to know like that creative background. And then I also would like to interview, as far as women, of course, I feel like everybody says this. I would love to interview Beyonce, because love her. But also, dang, those are good questions. And I feel like they're supposed to be quick, so I'm not gonna think on it too much. But for sure, Beyonce and Oprah. I would like to talk to Oprah. I would like to be on the other seat. To
If
be
you
like,
get Oprah, you know you can get Beyonce, and
I was
vice
like,
versa.
those are like two big ones. So those are like so big. But
Ain't nothing wrong with having the dream. Gotcha. And then a couple other ones, event that you have not covered yet that you still want to cover.
mm, so I do want to do like the BET awards as a whole, like because I covered the hip hop awards, but I would like to do the BET awards. I also would love to cover the Grammys and the Soul Train Awards. Like I'm a music girl, so I definitely will feel like I made it if I get to cover the Grammys.
And then last question, and you gotta help on this answer. Name someone that you think would be a good guest for this podcast, but you gotta be the plug for it.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna say my friend Brian. His name is Brian Hampton. I met him here in Atlanta at the Revolt Summit, one of the first people I met when I got here. But he's like so dope. Like he just wrote a book, is available for pre-sale on Amazon. And he loves hip hop just as much as I do. And like he's another one that like creating lanes for himself, worked for Hip Hop DX, CNN, you know what I mean? So I think he would be a great guest.
Gotcha.
And he's from the DMV. He's from Maryland.
Oh, okay. DMV represents. So you got to be the plug for that. So keep that in mind.
I got you.
Gotcha. Well, Shanique, it was great getting the chance to talk with you and catch up. And like I said, I think it's like the first time we probably talked since the NBC 12 days. Kind of got something in my eye right now. Bad timing. But yeah, it's definitely been a great time talking to you. Definitely a great job catching up. And I'm definitely happy and proud of the work that you've gotten to do. And definitely look forward to seeing what's coming up in the future for you.
Yeah. Here, so thank you so much. And you probably heard my thing. I just took a screenshot of us just to keep, because it makes me happy.
Definitely. But hold on to it for a while. Hold on to it.
Yeah, I will.